How's it going, everybody? Daner here with North Central Coins, and welcome back to another episode of the most rare and valuable coins in Canada. Today we're going to be discussing a few Canadian half dollars from the year 1947 that, if found and identified correctly, can be worth some insane amounts of money. Because not many of these 50-cent coins were struck, it makes finding them pretty tricky, but not impossible. I can personally attest that I have actually found and owned one of the rare of these 1947 half dollars in the past, and I only paid scrap silver price for it, and definitely sold it for a lot more than I paid. Okay, I will admit it was not the Holy Grail 1947, but it was the second most valuable of the four major varieties that you can find, and it is a great sign that just about anybody can find these coins if you are armed with just a little bit of knowledge. In this video, we will explore the historical context surrounding the production of these incredible pieces of Canadian numismatic history. Additionally, we will discuss any distinguishing and identifying features, their significance among collectors, and also potential value if you are ever to discover a legitimate example. Before I do get into this, I would really appreciate if you guys would smash that thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and also ring that bell notification so you can stay up to date with my new content, and make sure to stay to the end of the video if you would like to find out how much you could get for one of these coins if you did ever find one. And then without further ado, what do you say we get right into it and discuss the Canadian 1947 half dollars? Let's get it, guys. The Canadian 50-cent coin, also known as pièce de 50 cents in French, holds a face value of 50 cents in Canada. Since the year 1937, the coin has featured the Canadian coat of arms on its reverse side. A significant historical moment occurred during the opening ceremonies for the Ottawa branch of the Royal Canadian Mint on January 2, 1908, when Governor General Earl Grey struck the first domestically produced 50-cent coin for the Dominion of Canada. This first ever domestically produced inaugural coin was a silver 50-cent piece bearing the effigy of King Edward VII. Although the Canadian 50-cent coin is regularly minted, it is not mass-produced, with an approximate annual average production of 150,000. Since the year 2004, it has been made available to the public exclusively through direct purchase from the Canadian Mint. Encountering this denomination in everyday transactions is quite rare because there's a widespread misconception among many Canadians that the coin itself is scarce. Typically, when a 50-cent coin is used in a transaction, the recipient tends to hold on to it, and it is not uncommon or unusual for people to question the legitimacy of this coin due to its limited circulation. The status of the Canadian 50-cent coin is similar to that of the United States half dollar. Vending machines generally do not accept it even when they accept coins of both higher and lower values. The Canadian Mint made an effort to promote the use of this coin with a special edition released in 2002 to mark the 50th anniversary of Queen Elizabeth II's ascension to the throne. However, this promotion was largely unsuccessful. Subsequently, the Canadian Mint ceased distributing the 50-cent coins to banks, and they now sell them only in rolls or coin sets directly from their numismatic department, usually priced at twice their face value, or around $25 per roll of 25 coins. Now, what do you guys say that we get into the coins that you are all here to find out about, and that is the 1947 Canadian half dollars. Now, these 1947 Canadian 50-cent coins come in two distinct styles for the final digit in the date 7. The first style features a tall 7 with a left curving tail at the bottom, often referred to as the straight 7. This is actually the same 7 design used in the 1937 Canadian half dollars. And on the other hand, the second style showcases a 7 with a right curving tail on the bottom and is commonly known as the curved 7. With India gaining independence from the British Empire in the year 1947, the Canadian Mint had to make changes to the inscriptions on their coins. The IND-IMP inscription, which denoted Emperor of India in Latin, was replaced with DG Gratia Rex, signifying by the grace of God. However, in 1948, there was a delay in receiving the dies with the new abbreviation, and there was a pressing need for circulating coinage. To meet this demand and ensure continued production, they actually continued to strike coins dated 1947 into the year 1948. These 1947 coins can be distinguished by looking for a small maple leaf located to the bottom right-hand side of the final digit 7 in the date. Now for the half dollars, there are 4 major varieties for this date and a few smaller attributions called the narrow and wide dates, which can add even more of a premium to this coin. But for today, we're just going to be discussing the big 4 of these Canadian 1947 half dollars. Now some of the details and specifications for these coins, including their mintage figures, if any of these are off, it might indicate that the coin is not authentic. There are a lot of counterfeits out there, especially on sites like AliExpress, eBay, and Amazon. You have to be super wary. I've seen all sorts of coins from the 1944 Tomback to the 1911 silver dollar and just all sorts of crazy numismatic frauds out there that you have to be wary of. So you want to make sure that the specifications are bang on, especially if you want to get the absolute premium for these coins. So first of all, the mintage figure for the 1947 straight 7. It has a mintage figure of 424,885. Now, if you're watching this video from the United States and you know anything about coin collecting, then you might have an idea of what an extremely low mintage figure 424,000 is. If that was a Walking Liberty or a Kennedy or Benji half dollar, you can be sure that it'd be worth some pretty good money. And that is actually the least rare of the varieties. And then you have the 1947 straight 7 Maple Leaf, which has an extremely limited mintage of 38,433. The mintages for the 1947 Curve 7 and the 1947 Curve 7 Maple Leaf are actually included in the previously mentioned mintages. So if you were to find one of these, they are extremely rare. So if there's only 38,433 examples of the straight 7 Maple Leaf, there's only a handful of examples of the Curve 7 Maple Leaf, which is actually the holy grail of the 1947 half dollars. Now the specifications for these coins, they are composed of 80% silver and 20% copper. They have a weight of 11.66 grams, a diameter of 29.72 millimeters, and a thickness of 2 millimeters. The coins were designed and engraved by T.H. Paget for the obverse and G.E. Kruger Gray for the reverse. The edge of the coin is reeded, it is non-magnetic, and it has a die-axis in metal alignment, as is the standard for most Canadian, Australian, and British coins. So as I give you guys the values for these coins, I'm going to give you examples of what you need to look for to identify with the 1947 straight 7. So to identify this, you want to look at the final digit of 7 in the date 1947, and you are looking for a straight shape and for the bottom to curve to the left. And if you can identify that and it does not have a maple leaf to the bottom right of the 7, then you have the plain straight 7 variety. In terms of its low end value, it can be worth around $9.20 for an AG3, which is at the absolute bottom of the Sheldon scale. That is pretty much silver melt value, so you're not getting too much extra for this coin. But it can be worth around $10.20 for a VG8 and $45 for an EF40. And then we have the rare of the two 1947 straight 7 varieties, and that is the straight 7 Maple Leaf. Now this is the coin that I have actually owned in the past. I think I paid somewhere around $9 or $10 in a lot on eBay when I bought it, and it was mixed in with a bunch of other silver half dollars, and I could actually cherry pick it out. I could see it in the picture and tell that it was a straight 7 Maple Leaf, so I purchased the lot right away. And when I sold the coin, I'm pretty sure I got somewhere around $100 for it. But if you can identify the straight 7 and it has a maple leaf to the bottom right hand side of the 7, it can be worth around $35 for a VG8 and $167 for an AU50 example. Now I'm also going to give you guys the high end values for these coins, but I thought I would start it off with the low end values because a lot of the time when you are finding these, they are from scrap silver purchases. So the third of the 1947 varieties is the 1947 Curve 7. Now this one isn't worth too much if it's in a low grade condition. It's worth about silver melt value, but it can be worth around $13 for an F12 and all the way up to $55 for an AU50 example, and that is for the Curve 7 variety. So to identify that, the 7 should look curved and the bottom of the tail should point off to the right. And then the last of these different varieties you can look for is also the most rare and valuable, and that is the 1947 Curve 7 Maple Leaf. So to identify this, you want to find the same 7 as in the previous coin, the Curve 7, so it will be slightly wider and shorter, and the bottom of the tail will point off to the right. And then if it also has a maple leaf to the bottom right hand side of the 7, then you have yourself an extremely rare and valuable coin. Even on the low end, it can be worth around $2,500 for a VG8 example and all the way up to $6,000 for an AU50. So even if you were able to find one of these and it's beat up, worn, and been put through the meat grinder, you're still going to be able to get probably $1,000 for this coin. It is definitely one that flies under the radar. A lot of people focus on the 1948 Canadian coins, but these 1947s can be be worth some really good money as well, especially the Curve 7 Maple Leaf. Alright, so let's get into the high-end values for these coins. First, we will start with the 1947 straight 7 plain with no maple leaf. So in terms of the low-end value, it can be worth around $100 for an MS60, $280 for an MS63, and all the way up to $3,300 for an MS65, which is currently the highest graded known example. If you were able to find one and it scored any higher, you would probably see quite a price jump, easily $5,000 to $10,000. Next is the 1947 straight 7 maple leaf. Once again, to identify the straight 7, you want the 7 to look straight and slightly taller than on the curved 7, and the bottom of the tail will point off to the right. In terms of its high-end value, it can be worth around $250 for an MS60, $500 for an MS63, and all the way up to $3,100 for an MS65. So it actually isn't much more valuable on the extreme high end, but it is a coin that has a premium on the lower end, and that is the straight 7 maple leaf 1947. So then we have the curved 7 plain with no maple leaf. This one is actually the least valuable on the high end of the 4 different varieties that you can look for. In terms of its low end value, it can be worth around $100 for an MS60, $280 for an MS63, and all the way up to $2,450 for an MS65. Once again, to identify the curved 7, you want the 7 to look slightly shorter and fatter, and the bottom of the tail will point off to the right. And then last but not least, we have the high-end value for the holy grail of these 1947 Canadian half dollars, and that is the curved 7 maple leaf. To identify this, you want to look to the bottom right-hand side of the 7, and if it has a small maple leaf and it has the curved 7 as well, so the 7 is a little bit shorter and fatter and the bottom points off to the right, then you have yourself a holy grail coin that can be worth around $8,700 for an MS60 and all the way up to $18,400 for an MS63, which is currently the highest graded known example that I could find. If you could find one and it scored any higher, you would probably see some significant price jumps. We could easily be talking a $50,000 coin to even $100,000 if it scored in the 66 or 67. Now, what do you guys think about these 1947 Canadian half dollars? What would you ever do if you found a legitimate example, or if you ever have found any of the coins discussed in this video? Let me know down in the comments. I would love to know. Also, I would really appreciate if you guys would smash that thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and also ring that bell notification so you can stay up to date with my new content. But I think that is pretty much going to do it for this one, folks. So until the next one, everybody, peace out and have a good one, y'all.